What's up, everybody? We're going to do an installment of Dave's Man Cave. And it's Sunday. Well, it's Sunday afternoon now. And I ran across this channel, and I'll link him and give him credit for the snippet here I'm going to take. And saw him on Instagram, and it's Nick Kasmic. He's a really cool dude, goes through a lot of philosophical stuff, explaining principles and some of the teachings and words of Socrates, Aristotle, Nietzsche, Plato, a lot of philosophers and some of the greatest minds in early human history, and how some of the conclusions and things that they believed then, how they are actually translating and holding true to what's going on right now today in certain parts of America and in the world, frankly. So what I'm going to do right here is go ahead and play that video for you. We'll insert it here in, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to break it down and talk about it a little bit. So take a watch. It's only like, I think it's 2.5 minutes. So watch this real quick, and we're going to come down and break it down and how this correlates. And I think he does an amazing job, because these are things that I've talked about for years and tried to articulate, and I don't think I've ever really articulated as well as he did, especially putting it in the historical construct of and context of these philosophers and great minds. So give a watch to this, and then we're going to come back and break it on down into how this relates into what's going on currently in American politics. So check this out, and then come back and watch.
The ancient Greeks had a word for why smart people believe in stupid things. They called it amathia. It is often translated as ignorance, but that does not quite capture its depth. Amathia is not a lack of intelligence. It is actually intelligent stupidity. The corruption in those who know how to think but refuse to. Socrates believed that amathia was the root of all evil. Ignorance, not the ignorance of not knowing, but the ignorance of not wanting to know. There is only one good, Socrates said, knowledge, and one evil, ignorance. In the dialogues of Plato, Socrates describes men like Alcibiades, educated, brilliant, and utterly lost. Alcibiades was a general and a politician, admired for his eloquence and his ambitions. But Socrates saw something fatal within him, the illusion of wisdom. He mistook cleverness for understanding. He could argue any position, win any debate with anybody, and yet never question himself. That, Socrates warned, is the essence of amathia. It is the blindness of the soul, not of the mind. The philosopher Karl Popper said that the greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance, but the illusion of knowledge. It is when intellect becomes a weapon of self-deception, when reason serves ideology instead of truth. That is why otherwise intelligent people believe and do stupid or evil things. They have invested too much of their own identity in being right. And when being wrong could threaten that identity, the mind closes completely like a fist within them. See, amathia cannot be cured by arguments or better data, because it is not a lack of reason. It is a distortion of reason. The corruption of intellect by ideology, ego, and fear. The Stoics later called it disknowledge, a sickness of the soul caused by false beliefs and bad education. It begins not in the brain but in the character of oneself. To admit I might be wrong risks losing who you think you are. So people retreat into certainties, politics, religion, culture, and defend them with all weapons of their own intelligence. They rationalize, they distort, and deceive, but not because they are stupid, but because they are clever enough to make those delusions look rational. In every era, amathia has worn different masks. In ancient Athens, it took the form of political pride. Today, it appears more as digital certainty, a world where information is infinite within us, but true understanding is rare. Socrates once said that no man does evil knowingly, but perhaps the tragedy of our time now is that many do it knowingly and call it good.
All right, so the first part of what he talks about here, and he does a damn good job, man. Kudos to you for doing that. Is what they felt was a problem in society, and maybe part of the human condition itself, is ignorance. There's truth in ignorance, and ignorance is the greatest evil they felt. But he took it a step further and said, but there's two kinds of ignorance, really. There's passive ignorance, I'm not a neurosurgeon. I'm ignorant of that because I have never done it. I've never been instructed on it. And then there's willful ignorance. People that could learn neurosurgery or whatever the topic is, maybe that's not the best example, and they choose not to. People that choose to bury their head in the sand. He's saying that most people, even though I've said repeatedly that the average IQ in America is 98, and anything below 80, which is only 18 points away, is considered learning disabled, bordering on retarded. But he's saying inherently the average person's not truly stupid. People have an intelligence to them. Some of us much more than others, some people a lot less. But when you look at the average person, they're not entirely stupid. They're considered intelligent, especially, I guess, if you're contrasting it to the rest of the animal kingdom of which we are a part of. And so there's things where you just don't know because you just never took the time to learn. You just were never exposed to it. You never had to know it. And then there's people who should know better and can know better, but they intentionally, and the information is actually in front of them, the law, what's going on your TV, what you watched in a video, things like that, and they choose to ignore it in order to remain ignorant and support a narrative. And that's the first distinction. There's passive ignorance and there's willful, intentional, going out of your way to not learn the facts or not acknowledge them. He said a further is the danger is that there's an illusion of wisdom, that people think because they say the sound bites, they say the thing, they say the right buzzwords that they were instructed to or a focus group came up with, that sounds plausible to someone who is ignorant, willful or passively ignorant, that sounds good. And that's why you just have your sound bites. That's why they just have a little sign saying something. It's why people that are out there protesting, as soon as you ask them, hey, why are you here? Well, Trump's a Nazi. Well, what has he done that's Nazi? And they immediately stop talking to you. They scream about things. They have no answer because they've never gotten past the slogan. They've made a slogan that defines how they feel. And some people will come up with a half-assed argument to try to justify and make it sound like how they feel is fact-based, but it almost never is in these situations. And so they're mistaking a clever statement. They're mistaking a clever slogan or something they heard that sounded good as some sort of actual wisdom and knowledge. And it's often not. It's usually not in these cases. So those are the folks that are really hard to talk to. Because if your stance and your beliefs and your entire argument is based on a feeling or it's based on something that's wrong, it's based on something you want to believe because you're ignoring the facts and you've just been told to believe this or you just want to believe that or you just woke up one morning and believed it, how do you have an argument? How do you have an intellectual debate that has any chance of winning them over? Okay? Those folks are more concerned with winning the internet debate than they are about being right. And Plato and Aristotle and Socrates and them, they felt that was dangerous. As a human condition, and for society and politics and a government and a nation, that's dangerous. And that would ultimately lead to its downfall. And you can't have those arguments with people who are emotion-based because, and this happens, it's not just politics. There are people that, I'm going to use myself as an example. I love motorcycles. I'm a motorcycle guy, I guess, if I'm going to give myself a label. But I'm not a Ducati guy, not a Kawasaki guy, not a Gixxer guy. I like motorcycles, and this time I buy a Kawasaki, next time it's a Triumph. I just like motorcycles because I enjoy riding them and they're fun, but the brand isn't as interesting. They're interesting, but it's not as, it's more immaterial. This time around, I think the Ducati's cooler. Next time, it could be the Yamaha that's cooler or the better deal, But we all know that there's Ducati guy, there's Ford guys, there's guys, my whole family going back 3 generations, we bleed Ford blue. And he's not a guy that just happens to own a Ford. He's a Ford guy. It's the same thing with sports teams. It's the same thing with a lot of things. I would never get caught dead in a Chevy. Why? Well, because I'm a Ford guy. And that's the difference is there's people that, in my mind, from my viewpoint, are normal. I like motorcycles and I like different brands, but it's about the motorcycle and the experience of a machine that does that. It's not about the brand. I don't identify with Ducati. It's not part of my identity. And that is a huge issue because whether you're a Harley guy, you're a Ford guy, you're a hardcore political guy, I don't agree with Republicans on a lot of things. While I do call myself a Republican, it's by virtue of the fact that I side with them more than the other side. And being that we have a two-party system, if you're going to vote for one or the other, and I agree with these guys 2 out of 3 times and those guys 1 out of 3 times, and the things over here, the 2 things are a bit more important and higher priority, then I go down that route. But most people are like sports guys, I think. I mean, I don't like sports. I don't get into it. I don't care about the team. I'm like, to me, it doesn't make sense. Well, why are you a fan of them? And why are you ready to fight that guy? Because he's with the other team. And it's this whole tribal thing. Meanwhile, you are 2 slobs that sit on your couch and never played the game anyway. You're not part of either team. Well, I'm from that city. So what? There's a lot of assholes from my city. It doesn't mean I follow them just because, well, we were born in the same geographic location. Same reason why if I see a guy in a Corvette or a Mustang or whatever car I own, I'm not like, hey, brother, you're not my brother. I don't know you. I may not even like you. You may be a complete turd. I don't know. Just because you bought the same brand vehicle as me doesn't mean we're brothers. But we all know that probably the majority of people are like that. Some might do it about cars, some might do it about music, some might do it about sport teams, but most people are probably like that. We feel like we have to fit in a bucket. We have to be aligned with something. We need to be aligned with something bigger than ourselves. It's a sports team, it's this, it's that, it's a hobby, it's something. The problem is when you take it to that level, is you replace your personality and and what you are. Your self-worth, your value gets attached to and even provided by that team, your political beliefs. You're that guy. You're not a guy who believes this. You're that guy. It sounds like it's not much of a difference, but psychologically, I feel like it's a big difference. The two become inseparable. It's part of your identity. When someone insults the Vikings or the Yankees, your blood pressure goes up. You're ready to fight. Why? Well, because I'm from New York and that's my team. They're not your team. You turn on your TV and you watch a bunch of guys running around making millions of dollars throwing a ball and hitting it with a stick. You're not part of that. It has nothing to do with you. They don't even know you exist. But no, you're that guy. And when you insult them, when you take that thing and you make yourself an XYZ guy, whatever that is, belief, hatred of Trump, sports team, Ford guy, Mopar guy, it doesn't matter. When you make that part of who you are, and you do that because I'm going to talk about the fact that we don't matter. Everybody wants to feel like they matter. We'll get into that in a second. The two become inseparable. It's no longer, I'm a guy who likes that. And if you think, well, Corvettes are stupid, well, I don't care. Don't buy one. Go buy a Nissan GTR or a Ford. I don't give a shit. What do I care? But to the Corvette guy, if you insult Corvette, you are now insulting him personally. The two are not separated. It's not you like that, and it's like, I'm my own entity. I just happen to have a preference over there. And when you attack that thing, to my mind, you're attacking that thing over there. That's not me. Go take it up with Chevy if you don't like it. Like, what do I care? But to the Corvette guy, that's his identity. That's his brand. He gets his sense of confidence and worth because he thinks that thing has value in society. That Harley gives him status and it's badass. So if I buy this and I own this thing, I will be badass. Even if I'm a dentist and I just, I'm not a badass. I'm not, whatever. When you insult Harley, you insult me because I am Harley, I am Ford, I am Ducati or Chevy or Ford versus, whatever. It doesn't matter what we're talking about. The topic is honestly irrelevant. This is a mechanism in the brain of people who attach them things to get confidence and value by proxy from external sources that they actually have nothing to do with. They just claim it as their own so they can ride its coattails. And if that is badass, then I'm badass. If that's awesome, I'm awesome. If that is elite status and I buy it, I now have the status that that Rolex has or whatever. And it's all bullshit. And the reason for it is because we all want to feel like we matter. Here's the reality. We don't. Most of us will never amount to anything. Most of us are never going to cure smallpox, change geopolitics, put a man on the moon, end world hunger, change the course of humanity in a good or bad way, right? There's people, you want to talk about Winston Churchill or this and that. Well, then there's the other side who, in a negative way, changed the course of human history. A Hitler, a Pol Pot, Stalin, Lenin. Most of us don't matter. In the big picture, we might matter to our friends, we might matter to our parents or our kids or our close our little tiny bubble. But our entire solar system is smaller than 1 grain of sand in the entire Sahara Desert. When you look at where we fit in the cosmos, we are primitive insects crawling around on a little tiny piece of rock that's floating around in a vastness of a universe that is so big, most human minds can't actually comprehend the distance and the scale of it. In the big picture, we don't mean anything. Very few of us are ever going to do anything. I'm going to live my life. I'm going to die 5, 10, 20 years from now. A couple of my friends and family that are still around are going to remember me. Then they're going to die, and I'm going to be forgotten. I'm never going to do anything amazing. I'm never going to change the course of history. They're not going to be talking about me 1,000 years from now. And I'm okay with that. I don't believe in religion. I don't believe in life after death. I'm going to close my eyes, and I'm not going to know that my eyes are closed anymore because I will be gone. I will cease to exist. I will rot, turn back into the elements of the earth that I came from, and the earth will keep moving on, and it will forget about me a lot sooner than I'd like to admit. And it's going to be like that for everybody. The difference is I accept it. I know my place in the universe. I ain't shit. I make a couple videos and maybe I'll change 4 people's minds. No one's going to remember this 20 years from now. But that thought that I find just, it is what it is, terrifies a lot of people. It's why we created religion. To deal with the whole thought of death and why am I here and to answer questions. And it started from primitive man worshiping the sun. And as we developed language and culture and cities and society, and we did understand a little bit more about science along the way as we progressed as a species, our religions and beliefs got more elaborate, but it's all the same mechanism. It's trying to give meaning to the meaningless. It's trying to give meaning and answers to the unanswerable. It's trying to give comfort to the thought of death. Who doesn't want to believe? I just put my dog down a couple weeks ago. In the back of my head, wouldn't it be nice if when I close my eyes and take my last breath, I wake up in a magical place where I don't have a mortgage, I don't have stress, everybody and every animal I've ever had and loved is there waiting for me? Yeah, that'd be a pretty sweet deal, right? Who wouldn't be comforted by that? But I don't believe it. I've seen nothing but there are people that they have to believe something because the thought of closing your eyes and just dying, it's terrifying. So they come up with a way to rationalize and cope and deal with that. And it's not just religion. I know I went down that rabbit hole, but it's also about what am I doing? I go to work, have a few laughs along the way, cry a little bit along the way, pay my bills, and have a little fun, go riding with my friends, and that's going to be it. It's going to be lights out. And I'm okay with that. It is what it is. But I've never felt the urge to be a sports guy, a fanatic, a something guy. I'm just a guy who likes different things, and my likes change over the years. My beliefs have changed over the years. But there are some people that are so entrenched in it because they don't, I think that comes down to confidence. People who are relatively confident in themselves and accept where I'm good and I know my shortcomings and I accept it. I'm better than a lot of people and I'm worse than a lot of others. Okay. Everybody can't be a winner and not everyone's going to be losers. Most of us are going to be somewhere in the middle. But when you allow yourself to become an XYZ person, you're not a person, you're that thing. It's your cause. And you believe in that stance becomes who you are. Doesn't matter if it's a vegan. Now, if you're a vegan and you just go out, no, I don't believe in cruelty to animals, and even though that is nature, I'm going to ignore that, and I just don't want to do it, and I'm just going to be a vegan. Who gives a shit? The problem is very few vegans can do that. They have to become a vegan. They have to start a TikTok channel. They have to tell everybody they meet that didn't ask and doesn't give a shit that they're vegan. They make sure everyone knows they're vegan. And that's the... You're not just a person who just says, I don't want to eat meat. It's got to be your persona. And I think that social media has made this so much worse. Ultimately, I think social media will be the downfall of society. It's giving a voice to people that shouldn't have a voice. It's exposing us to insane things. All the negativity, all the bad aspects of human nature and the human condition are amplified. Because very few people are just real, like, here's my life. I could make videos that are much better produced and edited, go back and clean up when I say the wrong word, and I meant to say this, but I said that, or, something like I said, add this when I should have said subtract. I do this all the time. But I'm not trying to be this perfect, overly produced presenter in a way. I'm flawed. I say the wrong shit. I don't script things. I talk about what I feel. I say it from the heart, and I'm honest. And sometimes as I'm thinking about 6 things on what I'm going to say next, I'll make bloopers. I make a point of leaving those in the videos because I'm not trying to be Dan Rather and overproduced and perfect and everything's in shot and I'm using all the latest techniques to make it look as polished as possible because I'm not that person. I'm not trying to create that persona. I'm just being Dave, telling you what I think and what I believe and giving examples and all that shit. But the problem is so many people create this persona of not who they are, but who they want to be, who they wish they were. And they put it out there. And then other people see that and they've got their filters and the edits and all, oh, wow, they look so glamorous. They look this, they look that, so polished and this. They look important and they're not. But now you feel compelled, well, God, now I look like a total chump, so I better do this. And it's a keeping up with the Joneses in the digital age. And it's all bullshit. And now you got AI in the mix where you can just tell a computer, hey, make me look this and make this and that. And it's all fake. It's all of us living these digital lives that we think matter and they don't. And we puff ourselves up and we try to make ourselves out into these justice warriors. Why? Because we want to matter. Back to the discussion a minute ago, we don't matter. Most of us don't matter. I can deal with that. A lot of people can't, especially people who are insecure. They have to go out of their way to prove to people that they're good. I know I'm a good person. I'm a flawed person just like anybody else. But I know that at my base, I'm a good person with good intentions and good intelligence, and my actions speak for themselves. And I'm not a Nazi. I'm not a fascist because I believe that the rule of law applies. I don't think it's literally Hitler or literal violence to say men can't have babies. But there's so many people that are so worried about their online persona that they craft this and in order to convince them, the world and themselves, that they're a good person. They have to have a cause. I'm fighting glutens this week and I'm an environmentalist, and if I don't buy styrofoam cups, I'm saving the planet. I mean, what could make you feel better? I mean, think of all the things you could do. Oh, you pull a guy out of a fire. Yeah, that's good. Oh, you saved a guy from the fire. I saved a whole world and planet. Holy shit, how'd you do that? Did you revolutionize cold fusion? No, I stopped using plastic straws in and I wore a ribbon on my shirt. It's all just, it's mental masturbation. It's all this stuff to puff people up and try to convince others, and in the process validate and prove to ourselves that we're not the scumbags that on some level these people feel they are. You know, this week, we're all against Hamas went and attacked Israel and declared war on Israel, and Israel's kicking their ass. Oh, it's genocide. That's willful ignorance. The information is out there. Israel was not at war with Palestine. One, there's no Palestine. If you keep saying the Palestinian people, Palestinian is an identity. It's a persona. There is no country of Palestine. It has never existed. It's a made-up thing. There is no Palestine. There's a bunch of people that are misfits from Jordan and other Arab countries that wanted nothing to do with them, and refugees. They dumped them into frickin' Israel. A lot of them from Egypt. And none of those Arab countries wanted anything to do with them. Israel said, fine, here, we're going to give you a huge section of our country, our ancestral homeland that we've been in for 3,500 years, including way before the Arab Muslims came and colonized. Everyone, when you call Israel colonists, well, they weren't there until 47. No, they've been there for 3,500 years. They just didn't get recognized as a country, but that was their ancestral homeland. It wasn't until the 7th century that the Arab Muslim invaders came in and colonized. It all happened in 47 was Israelis and Jews that had been run out of their own country were able to come back in, and they came home. It would be no different than if the Native Americans rose up and took back this country. Would we call them the colonizers? No, we were. And them taking it back would be them getting back their ancestral homeland. But people just want to take a stance. I have to feel. So they're out there supporting the terrorist group that killed 1,200 people, murdered and raped kids, burned people alive, took hostages, hid behind innocent civilians, staged photo ops of starving kids. Meanwhile, it's Israel going in and feeding them. And then Hamas would steal the food and blow it up so that the people couldn't have it because they can't. They're fighting a war. They want Israel gone. That's what from the river to the sea means. But you got all these American liberals who ironically are calling everybody on the right Nazis, even though the right tend to be Zionists. We support Israel. We believe they have a right to exist and defend themselves. From the river to the sea is a call for the extermination of all Jews in Israel. Globalize the Intifada is a call to kill Jews wherever you find them and eradicate the Jewish people from the face of the earth. Your new mayor of New York City has been on record calling for that. That's Nazis. The Nazis were the ones that were almost successful in wiping out the Jews. The Republicans are the ones that support Israel and the Jews. That's where that cognitive dissonance comes in. That's where that willful ignorance is. You know that on some level, but you can't bring yourself to admit it because you've convinced yourself that I'm pro-Palestine. I stand with the people of Palestine. Well, you're standing with the people of a country that don't exist, that elected one of the world's premier terror groups as their leaders, who's financed by the murderous regime in Iran and financed and basically as a proxy of their terror network, who declared war on Jews and is trying to exterminate them and commit a genocide against the Jewish people. But you ignore the facts because you want to feel like a good person. You want to feel because, well, I'm pro-Palestine, I'm fighting the good fight. You see yourself as this freedom fighter, and you're not. You're a fool. You're lying to yourself. You're lying to everybody online. You don't stand for what you say you're standing for. Well, we're standing for an oppressed free people. Okay. 2 weeks later, there's 40,000 people killed in Iran, murdered, shot in the head, who just want freedom. Women are taking off their hijabs and saying, I want to drive a car. I want to go to university. I want to own a home and not have to ask my husband for permission to go to the market. They want democracy. The things you say you care about. They're demanding it from their government, and their government is slaughtering them by the tens of thousands in the streets. Where are all the pro-Palestinian people fighting for Iran right now? None of them is saying anything. They don't care. They didn't care about Palestinians. They cared about hating Jews. And the Iranian regime that is killing all those Iranians is the regime that financed and controls Hamas, which is the people killing the Jews. So, of course, Democrats are not going to say anything against them. How do you have a logical discussion with someone who identifies as their belief when their beliefs are all over the place? You have people that were screaming, no kings, no dictators. So Trump took out a dictator, didn't kill him, arrested him and brought him to stand trial. Same guy Biden put a $25 million bounty on his head for his arrest and capture. So Trump went and did it in a very surgical, quick operation. And the very same people that were saying no kings, no dictators, immediately turned their signs around and started marching, release that dictator, release that king, send him back to Venezuela, let him oppress the Venezuelan people he's been killing for years. How do you argue with someone who, even though their stance is emotional and misplaced as it is, it's not even consistent? These are people who are holding completely polar opposite ideas on the same topic at the same time. You're like, wait, no kings, no dictators. Well, Trump's not a dictator. That guy over there is an actual dictator, and you want him freed and put back in power. And when you try to ask someone, you watch these interviews while they're out there protesting, and someone asks them that, don't talk to that guy, don't give any answer. Well, here's the thing. If you actually believe in your cause, you take questions. You don't scream. You don't try to block the camera. If someone asks me, why are you pro-gun? Why are you for lower taxes? Why are you pro-Israel? I'll sit there and talk for hours until you tell me to shut up. I'm happy to explain it. I'm glad you asked, because I know I have a better chance if I explain to you rather than just waving a banner and screaming and assaulting cops and stopping traffic. No one's going to listen to you. You're a nuisance. You're noise. You're not winning in hearts and minds protesting like that. Sitting down and having a discussion and saying, well, here's what I believe, but more importantly, here is why. Here's the facts, here's the charts, here's the history, here's the statistics, here's the sources. This is what, here's the math. This is why this adds up, and this is why I believe it. My belief is based on science, facts, data, something. But they won't have that discussion. As soon as you ask them, well, because Trump's out of control, ICE is out of control. Well, how are they out of control? Well, they're murdering people. No, they're not. ICE hasn't murdered anybody. You had a couple idiots go out there, one tried to run someone over with their car while resisting arrest and fleeing and evading, which is a felony, and so they shot her. She hit a cop with her car trying to escape after going and breaking the law and was legally being detained. No, it's not murder. That cop's not going to go to jail for that. Someone else who is on video assaulting and vandalizing an ICE vehicle and fighting with ICE the week before and is known as a violent agitator. These aren't innocent people standing on the side just holding up a sign and shouting and videoing. These are people that are interfering and engaging with and assaulting and breaking laws and getting involved and inserting themselves into police operations, lawful operations. ICE isn't doing anything they're not supposed to do. These laws have been on the books for decades. A lot of Democrats voted and gave us these immigration laws. Just because the last flunky, Biden, was asleep at the wheel and didn't enforce it doesn't mean that those laws aren't still valid for the next guy. I used an analogy in a video before. If I'm out speeding and a cop pulls me over and I'm like, hey, last 2 times I sped through this town, the cop never pulled me over. So why are you pulling me over? Because it's the law. Yeah, but he didn't enforce it before, so I don't feel like it should apply now. The cop's going to say, well, next time try and maybe get pulled over by, make sure that guy's on duty. When you go 45 and a 25 in my town and I'm on duty and catch you, I'm giving you a fucking ticket. Yeah, but the other guy didn't, so you can't. That's the argument they're trying to make, that, well, these aren't really laws. they are laws. Biden refusing to enforce them it is irrelevant. Trump came in and ran on, I mean, this is democracy. You're not fighting Trump. You're not fighting fascism. Nobody's a fascist. Nobody's a Nazi. Trump's not a dictator. They are enforcing the laws that are on the books and have been for decades. Laws that were passed by Democrats. Back when Democrats used to care about illegal immigration. I could throw up videos of Schumer, both Clintons, Biden, multiple times over the years, Obama, all talking about there's a difference. If you are here legally, we are welcome you. Come in, participate, but do it right. If you're here illegally, you need to go. You need to be deported. They've all gone on record at press conferences on the Senate floor saying this. You know, sneaking into a country illegally does not mean you're an immigrant. It means you're a criminal. Any more than breaking into my house makes you part of my family. You're breaking and entering. You're just not doing it on my house. You're doing it on our country. But legally, there's a law against it. If you're here illegally, you are a criminal. And if ICE goes to deport you, guess what? That's the law. Just because the other guy didn't do it doesn't mean the new guy can't. Especially when he ran on the promise that he would, and people elected him because of it. That is the sign. That is democracy. That is a mandate. Trump said, I'm going to do this. Kamala said, I'm not. We said, good, you're in office. And we overwhelmingly voted for him. The American electorate voted for this. Not because we're evil and Nazis, but because we believe in the rule of law. You break it, out. Bye-bye. Come back legally. We got no fucking gripe with you. But how do you rationally debate this to a person who identifies as their belief? Because if you prove the belief wrong, it's not me liking Ducati and you say Ducati sucks and I go, well, then go build a better Ducati, whatever. I like it and I'm fine with it. If I am the belief, if this is my cause, if this is what gets me up in the morning, if this is what gives me confidence, if this is what makes me feel like I matter as a person, if you provide facts, logic, and data that proves it wrong, you proved me wrong. You didn't just invalidate the belief, you invalidated me as a person, and I will not stand for that if I was that person. And when you do that, and that's why these people go from cause to cause, because it's like they're trying to fill something inside that is missing, and it's confidence. It's a belief that they are good people. They're overcompensating and trying to convince everybody else and themselves that they're good because look what I'm doing. I'm for this. Yeah, but that's wrong. You've got it backwards. That person is not a good person. That person's the actual dictator. Well, in their mind, you've just said they support dictators, which means they're a horrible person. To a person with a fragile ego and lack of self-confidence. Take away all the bluster. These are weak people, emotionally. You just shattered their world. They will not hear it. They will not stand for it. They will get violent. Their only recourse is to lash out like a little kid having a temper tantrum in the store because you told him you weren't going to go to McDonald's. And they're having a freaking meltdown. And as a parent, you're going to sit there and try to have a logical, rational conversation with a 6-year-old who has just lost their shit because they're not going to get a Happy Meal? What are you going to say that's going to change that child's mind and get him to stop? Well, honey, we can't do this because mommy doesn't have the extra money, or because we have dinner, it's an hour until dinner and you're going to spoil your dinner and I already have this stuff cooking at home. Do you think any of that logic, any of that reality matters to that 6-year-old that's having a meltdown? Nope, you just make them cry harder. The only thing you might hope to do is smack them on the ass and tell them if you don't cut this out, you're not getting anything. Or you take their toy away or you ground them. Some kind of threat is, if anything will even get through to them, that's probably the only thing. No amount of trying to understand, well, let me put myself in a 6-year-old. You're the adult. The kid's having a meltdown off for nothing. Put him in a goddamn timeout. trying to have a conversation and rationalize to a 6-year-old that's in the middle of an emotional meltdown over chicken nuggies or a candy bar at the lane in the register at the supermarket is not somebody who is prepared or equipped to have a rational, logical discussion. You are wasting your time. It's pointless. So either smack them on the ass and put them in a timeout or just let them cry themselves to sleep. That's where we are. And that's how I feel when you look at people that are out there protesting ICE and they're out there. You're not protesting tyranny. When you say things back to the, you want to be on the surface and say, ICE shouldn't kidnap innocent people. Well, that's a statement I agree with. But the reality is when you scratch past the surface, ICE isn't kidnapping anybody, especially innocent people. You're saying something that on its surface sounds clever. You're trying to add logic and reason to your emotional belief in state. And you think it makes like some mic drop moment statement, but it doesn't actually mean anything. I shouldn't be murdering people. You're right. Nobody should be murdering people. But they didn't murder anybody. You had 2 violent activists, one that tried to run one over, and the other one who brought a gun after already all having altercations with them, and then resisted arrest and reached for the gun, and whether the cop knew that the gun had just been taken a fraction of a second off of him by the other officer. You got a guy fighting tooth and nail with the cops, and he's got a gun on his hip, and he goes reaching for it. They fucking shot him. They did what they're trained to do. Had nothing to do with ICE. State troopers would have done the same damn thing, and have. But how do you have that conversation with them? If you tell them that they're wrong, you're telling them that, in essence, they're a bad person for believing what they believe. They're wrong as a person. And that's the biggest thing here, is we feel like we're arguing with kids who you explain and go, yeah, but here's the statutes, here's the codes, here's the laws that say if you come in illegally, an immigration judge or DHS can get their hands on warrants for deportation and can go and arrest you. But you say, well, they shouldn't kill anybody. They shouldn't kidnap innocent people. They're not innocent. They're here illegally. They are, in fact, a criminal for being here. And that's assuming they haven't committed other crimes, which millions of them have. So the first premise of that, ICE shouldn't be kidnapping people. They aren't. ICE hasn't kidnapped anybody any more than if, I don't know, if the cops called for a domestic dispute and you're shooting your gun in the front lawn or you're doing some other crime and the cops come to your house with a warrant and say, get out here. And if you don't, they kick in your door and they grab you and stuff you in the back of a cop car, or they catch you drunk driving for the 3rd time and they haul you off to jail. You're not being kidnapped. You're being arrested for anything. To say that ICE is kidnapping people is incredibly stupid, but they believe it. That's the willful ignorance. You know that for any other crime that wasn't tied to this political, emotional trigger for you, you go, well, the dude got arrested for had a hard drive full of kiddie porn, or this person was dealing drugs and growing, whatever, was making meth in the basement, and the cops busted him. You didn't say, hey, we busted a meth lab today and kidnapped 3 of the drug manufacturers. You don't use the word kidnapped. He was arrested. Illegals are being arrested. Yeah, but they're being arrested for their skin color. No, they're being arrested for being here illegally. Doesn't matter what their skin color is. It may usually happen to be brown, but that's because the majority of the illegals coming here are coming through the southern border, which is mostly brown people. But it's not because they're brown. If the prevalence was an eye color or whatever, you pick anything. If you're going after the people that are illegal, but if the majority of them have this trait, that's just a commonality between the people that are here illegally. They're not illegal because of that. They're because illegal of the action, not what color they were. But when they say things like that, they believe it. They believe that ICE is kidnapping people. How many kidnappers come with a warrant, arrest you, put you in a facility, and then give you a plane ticket, food, water, or a bus, and put you on a bus and send you home? How many kidnappings happen like that? It's not kidnapping. But when you tell someone that, they just look at you, blink, and just keep plowing right into the wall, and they won't even entertain the thought that they could be wrong. Because if that thought is wrong, then what they believe is wrong, and because they're that cause of the day person, that's their sense of being here. That's where they get their feeling of confidence and worth, and it's how they feel. It's what convinces themselves that they matter and that they're good people at heart. If you take that rug out from under them, you just shattered their world. They are now faced with it. I'm a fraud. I'm not the good person I thought I was. They won't admit it in those terms, but that psychologically is what's going on. They're having a temper tantrum because they have no logical argument to stand on. When there's thousands of hours of videos at these protests, people being violent, doing all this stuff, and someone comes up and they're like, don't talk to him, don't talk to him. Why not? If you want to convince people, if the purpose of protesting is change, and the way to change is to get people to change their minds and abandon what they thought and agree with what you think, you need to be prepared to make the better argument. And saying, don't talk to them, then why are you there? Why can't you articulate not just what you believe, but scratch between the surface and have a logical discussion on why you believe? Give me the facts that support that your argument is the right or the better argument than mine. If you can't do that, it's because you're either paid to be there and you don't care what the stance is, you're just being handed a sign and told to stand there for political reasons, or you're just caught up in it, in this whole emotional, I want to feel like I matter, and you never got past that. You just want to feel like a freedom fighter. You want to feel like I'm fighting the good fight and fighting Nazis. Meanwhile, there's not a goddamn Nazi in sight. The only ones acting like Nazis are you. You're the ones trying to shut people down. I'm watching videos. Oh my God, this person, this MAGA person ran over a protester. Someone jumped out in front of someone's car. It's on video. Tried to stop the car. The guy's like, I got to get to fucking work. And someone jumped in front of his car, and then people are screaming. They're waving signs. Guy gets worried, like, shit, is my car going to get banged up? Is someone going to smash me in the face with a sign? And he's like, screw this, I'm out of here. And floors it. Knocks the guy off onto the sidewalk. Don't play in traffic. You have a right to protest. You do not have a right to interfere with lawful police business. You do not have a right to shut down highways. You do not have a right to shut down businesses. Your rights end where someone else's rights begin, or where the law begins. You can stand on the side of the road and say whatever you want. The second you go and push a cop and get in the way and try to block them, interfere with an investigation, interfere with them serving a warrant and a deportation order, you just broke the law. And if you make it worse by fighting with the cops, bad shit's going to happen. And if you do it with a gun on your hip and you reach for it, whether it's there or not doesn't matter. It's showing intent. You were armed. You could have other weapons. We don't know. You already brought one gun that we know of. So just saying, oh, he was unarmed. He was unarmed 1.1 seconds before that shot was fired. It happened like that. Gun was off him. He reaches for it. The cop who's on the other side, they can't see the holster anymore, but he knows it's there because he was over there, and he knows there's a gun in the holster. He sees that guy going, boom, he shoots. The other guys hear a gunshot go off. They start backing up, and they all double tap, and you got multiple rounds because that's what they're trained to do. You know how you avoid that? You don't take a gun to a protest and then decide to get involved and fight with law enforcement and then resist arrest while you got a gun on your hip. And you sure as shit don't reach for it. I have no sympathy for that dude dying. I feel bad for his family, but his parents, his dad even told him, what are you doing with your life? You got a good career, you're doing good things. Why are you out there trying to cause trouble, messing with cops, antagonizing them, and goading them into fights? This will not end well. And a week later, it didn't. Not ISIS' fault, not my fault, not Trump's fault. All these agitators and people out there deciding to protest. It's not a protest. It's a violent insurrection. You are rebelling against the rule of law, the results of a democratic election. You are fighting against the federal government. If that's not an insurrection, what is? And just because you've been told by your TV that you feel, but it's justified because of how I feel. No, you are on the wrong side of the law. If someone's here illegally, they got to go. Bill, Hillary, Chuck Schumer, Joe Biden, Obama, and dozens of others have said this numerous times over the years. They all believed it then. That's why they passed those laws to begin with. ICE and Trump are not making up the laws. They're not acting lawlessly. They're not unaccountable. They are enforcing the laws. You don't like the laws, go elect someone different. Should have put Kamala in power. Maybe she would have and kept the Democrat Senate. And then maybe you'd have the power to go and change the laws. But Trump said, I'm going to do this. America said, the majority of America that voted said, yes, we want that. We don't want her idea. We want you to do that. And he's using the existing laws that have been on the books for years, for decades. You don't like it, that doesn't mean the law is wrong or bad because you don't like it or you've been told not to like it. It's insane. And to tie it back to that original video, he's absolutely right. This is a human failing. This is a human condition that people fall into. And you have left brain and right brain people. Being a Democrat doesn't make you emotional and crazy and unhinged and all that other stuff. Being rational and logical, or being a Republican, doesn't make you rational and logical or more fact-based. It's the other way around. People that tend to be more self-reliant, less about the collective, more about, common sense, the rule of law, personal accountability, those people tend to become conservatives because that political party caters to that mindset. People who are emotional and don't think it's about the person, it's all about a society and it takes a village and it's about the collective greater good and everything's emotional. Well, I feel this and you're triggering me that. Those people tend to become liberal Democrats because that party's platform caters to that mindset. And that's why having these discussions with them is so water and oil. I'll have a conversation about anything with anybody at any time. And I'll explain why I think I'm right. And I think most of the time I'll be right. Occasionally I've been wrong, but I'm right a lot more than I'm wrong. And the facts do stand up. And that's the thing here. Illegal immigration is not good for America. It's not. Immigration was good in the 1800s, early 1900s, when people came here, they did it right, and they came here to work and produce. When it was about creation and expansion and building a country, immigration's good. When our country now is more of a welfare state and people are coming here to take more than they produce, that isn't economic. There's a whole discussion right there. If you want to go back and watch a lot of the videos on economics and immigration from Milton Friedman, that could be a homework assignment for you. We'll do a video on that sometime. But this is important stuff. We're watching our cities become battlegrounds because a bunch of emotional, immature, uneducated, willfully ignorant, no other way to call it, but children are out there lashing out at mommy and daddy because they don't like the rules and it's not fair, it's not fair. Well, it's my house, these are the rules. That's what the government's saying. These are the rules. We all pass these laws. This is the law of the land. And just because you go to grandma and grandma lets you have ice cream for breakfast, Biden, doesn't mean when you come home you get to eat ice cream. These are my rules in my house. When you grow up and you're in control of your own house, if your party wins, you can set your own rules. But right now, these are the rules in the law of the land. You either follow them or you're going to get grounded all the time, or at some point you're old enough to be out on your own. I'm going to be like, you want to do things your way? Well, you're 20 years old. Get a job and get the fuck out of my house. That's where we are. We have a bunch of people running around like little children, throwing a temper tantrum, screaming about things that they don't understand. And it's not because they can't understand it. It's because they choose not to. And that is what Aristotle and Socrates and Plato were talking about. That is the most dangerous kind of ignorance, willful. You have the information at hand. You have the cognitive ability to digest it and understand it. You choose not to because you're an emotional person. And how you feel and are instructed to feel takes priority over facts, data, and reality and common sense. And when you have someone who thinks like that, and then the other person's like, well, I can feel how I feel, but I'm all about the data and it is what it is. There's no common language to connect. You're talking Martian and this person's doing Sanskrit. It doesn't count. It doesn't translate. It's not about the words. It's about the thought process. And one person's brain operates very differently than the other. To be fair, there are instances where the liberal way of thinking, there are instances in life, plenty of them, where that is preferable. Dealing with interpersonal relationships. If I was only about logic, and I get into this trouble a lot with my wife, I may be right. And she's like, yeah, well, you could be right. Like arguing with a truck coming at you and you got the right of way. And you're going to be dead right. Right? So I'm like, so there are plenty of times where that way in interpersonal relationships and being more compassionate and saying, is my being right worth hurting that person's feelings? And maybe I just swallow my pride and say, yeah, honey, that dress doesn't make you look fat. By the way, honey, the dress doesn't make you look fat. And you know, you spare their feelings. And so you set aside what's technically right or factual for the benefit of the other person. There are plenty of instances where the liberal view and way of doing things is the preferable way. But you can't run a country like that. Logistically, with taxes and defense and illegals, and I mean, you gotta manage this, and you can't manage it by feelings. You gotta go by the data and facts. So I'm not dumping on liberals for that. There's no value to that way of thinking. We can't all just be heartless and logical all the time and always setting aside feelings. There's plenty of things in life that having compassion and setting aside the facts and just, all right, I'm just going to swallow this and do this because it's more important to have peace in my house or to make her feel good than it is for me to be right. I'm not against liberals on everything all the time. I side with them on several key objects and topics, and I argue with my Republican friends about those things. But when we're talking about this shit, they're children. They're children throwing a fucking temper tantrum, and that's all it is. And it's not that they can't learn, they don't want to. And they openly refuse to. And when you try to force the facts down their throat and say, listen, they're the kid wigging out and melting down at the grocery store. There's nothing you can say other than giving them what they want. And if what they want is bad, like open borders, everyone just come in and help yourself to free shit and do whatever you want. Who cares about all the people being murdered by them? You know, you're not going to give them that. That's not an option. That's bad for everybody. So you're not getting that. There's nothing else you can say that's going to make that kid stop having a meltdown, other than maybe smacking him and saying, you're going to get more of this. And that's what's maybe going to need to be coming. Because they can't sit there violent like this forever without there being larger ramifications other than just an idiot trying to run over a cop with their car and someone else resisting arrest while armed and being violent and getting lit up in the process. There's going to be bigger ramifications if this continues. And nobody wants that. That's going to tear this country apart. Meanwhile, all of our enemies are sitting there laughing at us. Like, we don't even have to beat these big, dumb, fat Americans. We'll just give them TikTok and the tools and the misinformation and pour money into everything negative about the country. We'll fund that and send these useful idiots out there to fight our war for us and watch America crumble to internally to the point that we're weak, we're fragmented, we're not united, and then we'll be ripe for the pickings. Whether it's 20 years from now or 200, at the rate we're going, it's going to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Every other major, massive empire that's ever been in human existence is gone. We're here. We'll be gone at some point too. The question is, how soon are we going to let it happen? Because this shit's putting us down that path. Anyway, hope you enjoyed your Sunday afternoon Coke with a smile with Dave. Watch check. What are you guys all wearing? Put in the comments. Today we got Frederic Constant. It's their limited edition, only 1,800 pieces. This was a Swiss-made, made from in conjunction with the Riva Historical Society. It's a very nice little watch. Beautiful, beautiful dial. Look at that color. Look at it. Look at it. Can I get the damn thing to focus? No. Beautiful open heart in the back. Automatic. Lovely. Anyway, everybody, use your heads. I don't know what the answer is here because I don't know how to get through to somebody. I don't know how to get through to a kid who's having a meltdown other than just say, all right, whatever, and just walk away and let them cry themselves to sleep. Figure they'll get themselves tuckered out at some point. I don't know if these clowns will, though. Not without taking a lot of other people with them because they're just angry. They're willfully ignorant. They don't care about what they're actually doing and how it's hurting themselves and the rest of the country. It's not just the rest of the country, it's the rest of the world. So a lot of bad actors in the world that are kept in check by the US being where we are in the world to kind of be the world police and keep some of these things down. Do you really want China and Russia being the top dogs and calling the shots for everybody? Use your heads. Anyway, everybody have a good day. Oh, and I got my wife got me this sponge-worthy. I am. Anyway, later.